Good morning, Junior 5. Let's start to complete our lesson today, which is called the food relationships among the living organisms. In the last video, we talked about the types of food relationship, which are predation, symbiosis, and saprophytism. And we finished the predation. Now we will talk about the symbiosis. Symbiosis, it's a food relationship between two different types of living organisms. So there are three types of symbiosis, which are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. So there are three types of symbiosis according to the different types of living organisms, which are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. So, Junior 5, you have to differentiate between the types of food relationship and the types of symbiosis. Types of food relationship, which are predation, symbiosis, and saprophytism. But the types of symbiosis, mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Now we will talk about the mutualism. Mutualism, it's the food relationship between two living organisms, in which each of them or both of them gets benefit from the other, benefit from each other, and is not harmed. So the mutualism, it's the food relationship between two living organisms. Each of them get benefit from the other and is not harmed. So each of them benefit and is not harmed. So this is called the mutualism. Like the relation between the nodular bacteria and the leguminous plants or the legumes plants. These plants cannot absorb the nitrogen from the soil to make their own food. So the nodular bacteria, it's a type of bacteria which live on their roots. They fix the nitrogen in an inorganic form. They fix the nitrogen on the roots of the leguminous plants. And after the plants make their own food by photosynthesis process, it provides the bacteria with sugar. It gives the bacteria with sugar. So the nodular bacteria benefits from the leguminous plants because they take the sugar. They take some sugar. But the plants benefit from the nodular bacteria because the nodular bacteria fix the nitrogen to the plant to make their own food. So the relation between the nodular bacteria and the leguminous plants is mutualism because both of them can benefit from each other and is not harmed. Number 2, the commensalism. Commensalism means it's a food relationship between two living organisms. One of them benefits from the other, and the other neither benefit nor harmed. the other neither get benefit nor harmed. Like the relation between the sponge and the tiny aquatic living organisms. Tiny aquatic living organisms like the small fish, like this. So, the tiny aquatic living organisms live in the canals and the fissures of the sponge. They live in the canals and fissures of the sponge to get the food and shelter. Shelter means home. So the tiny aquatic living organisms get the food and shelter from the canals and fissures that are found inside the sponge. So the tiny aquatic living organisms benefits from the sponge because they get food and live inside these fissures or canals. But the sponge neither benefit nor harmed. Neither benefit nor harmed. So the relation between the sponge and tiny aquatic living organisms, this relation is called the commensalism. Now we will talk about the third type of the symbiosis, which is called the parasitism. Parasitism means it's a food relationship between two living organisms. But one of them benefits from the other and it's called the parasite. But the other is harmed and it's called the host. So the parasitism, it's the food relationship between two living organisms. One of them benefit from the other and it's called parasite, and the other is harmed. And it's called the host. So the parasite, it's the living organisms which benefit from the host. There are two types of parasitism, which are external parasitism and internal parasitism. There are two types of parasitism, which are external parasitism and internal parasitism. Let's start with the external parasitism. In the external parasitism, the parasite lives externally or outside the host's body, and it gets their food or feeds by sucking the blood of the host. So the parasite conveys or causes some diseases to the host, like mosquito. The mosquito may cause the malaria disease. The mosquito gets its food by sucking the blood, and it causes malaria disease. So the mosquito start with M letter, causes malaria, start with letter M also. Like lice and fleas, and fleas may convey the plague disease. And these pictures, it's the plague disease. And bug and ticks, and also the Jules lamprey, which lives in the oceans. The Jules lamprey sucking the fish's blood. So there are some examples of the external parasitism or external parasite, like Jules lamprey, which sucks the fish's blood, and ticks, bug, and fleas, and the fleas may cause the plague disease, and the lice and mosquito, and the mosquito causes the malaria disease. Now we will talk about the internal parasitism. In the internal parasitism, the parasite lives internally or inside the host's body. The parasite lives inside the host's body, and it gets their food by sharing the host. Share the host eats digested food, or share or feeds its cell and tissues. There are some examples about the internal parasitism. All of them are worms. Like bilharzia worm. The bilharzia worm causes the bilharzias disease. But the mosquito causes what? Super Junior 5, the malaria disease. And the fleas causes what? Yes, the plague disease. But the bilharzia causes the bilharzias disease. And like the ascaris worm. The ascaris worm causes anemia disease. Ascaris cause the anemia disease. Ascaris start with the A letter, so it causes the anemia that start with A letter. Like the tapeworm and the filaria worm. And filaria may cause the elephantiasis disease. This is the shape of the filaria worm. It causes the elephantiasis disease. Junior 5, don't forget filaria, so it causes elephantiasis disease. And this is the filaria worm, and this is the elephantiasis disease. It's called by this name because it causes disease to the leg. The leg look like the leg of the elephant. So it's called the elephantiasis disease. And like the liver worm. this shape, it's the liver worm. It lives inside the liver, so it may cause damage to the liver. So it's called the liver worm. Now, the third type of the food relationship, which is called the saprophytism. Saprophytism. Saprophytism means it's the food relationship in which the saprophytes or decomposers get their food by decomposing the food remains, the decayed food remains, and the dead bodies of the organisms. So the saprophytism means the food relationship in which the saprophytes or decomposers get their food by decomposing the food remains or the decayed food remains and the dead bodies. And there are three types of saprophytism, like mushroom fungus and bread mold fungus. The green layer, which is formed on the bread, this green layer, it's called the bread mold fungus. They are decomposers which feed by decomposing the food or the decayed food remains. And the penicillium fungus that decomposes the orange fruits, like this green layer, which is formed on the rotten fruits or the rotten orange. It's called the penicillium fungus. The penicillium fungus. So there are three examples of saprophytism, which are the mushroom fungus and the bread mold fungus and the penicillium fungus. And the penicillium fungus get their food by decomposing the orange fruits. Thank you, Junior 5, for listening. Goodbye.